Hello, my name is Esmeralda D'Souza Obwaka, and I'm so honored to be part of the Kayana community. And Kayana is celebrating 3 years of existence, and it's a space where female entrepreneurs have been coming together to network, to learn from each other, and grow their businesses. Today, we get to hear from Patricia Okelo and Eunice Maina with regards to their journeys of writing their books, and specifically how to deal with editors. Hello everyone, today I have the absolute honor of interviewing Patricia Okelo and Eunice Maina about their books, and they'll tell you where they're available later on. Ladies, introduce yourselves.
My name is Patricia Okelo. I'm the author of A Candid Handbook for Women Doing Business in Kenya. I've been an entrepreneur for the last 20 years. Actually, this is my 21st year, and I'm really excited to be here with you, Esmeralda and Eunice.
Thank you so much.
Hi everyone, my name is Eunice Maina, the author of Sell Me This Pen, a book for salespeople and entrepreneurs, and the CEO and founder of Be Smart Insurance, an insurtech that innovates insurance for Kenyans by Kenyans.
Thank you so much, and thank you both of you for taking time to, talk to us about the journey to becoming an author. The first question I have for you, Patricia, is how did you decide it was time to write a book? What was the inspiration behind it?
Okay, I kind of tell this story a lot, but I'll repeat it. I had gone for an event in Florida. I had been nominated for an award, and I had interacted with very successful entrepreneurs. And when I came back to Kenya, I really wanted to replicate the same event, but now in the Kenyan context. But as I started asking people, about the idea, how we are here, and everybody was like, oh, that thing has happened before, and every so-and-so is doing it, and so I kind of got discouraged. And but the idea was still really, really burning inside me. So I just started journaling. I've always journaled most of my life, and I started writing. If I had this event or if I interviewed these women, how would it look like? And that's really how the whole idea was birthed of A Candid Handbook for Women Doing Business in Kenya. Yeah.
Okay. How about for you, Eunice? What inspired the book?
Wow. I was the country sales manager at Britam then, and my role involved training insurance agents, brokers, and even employees to how to sell. And so one time I just started, sending, because I realized I couldn't reach all the branches at the same time. We hadn't embraced technology like now. So every time I would send an email giving them highlights on how to sell. And I would get responses, Eunice, you really mentor me. I want you to mentor me. Please come and train us in this branch. And so I was torn. And so I thought, what if I document all this so that then they can continue reading even when I am not there? Yeah. I don't know, I always thought, when I'm not there. And so I started writing. That was in 2016. Mm-hmm. When I started writing was around October 2016. And all I was doing is to document these nuggets so that then insurance agents can be reading and they don't have to keep calling me to mentor them. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. That's really interesting. So you decided to write a book.
Yeah.
And what happens next?
For me, what I did is, because it was so daunting starting to write, I didn't necessarily start with chapter 1. So what happened is that I started with at that time, what I felt was the greatest need. And at that time, I felt what we need to do is encourage women, however small their business is, to take it seriously. And some of the things around taking it seriously would be ensuring that your business outlives you. And what are those things? Put systems in place. Take yourself seriously from the beginning, And so I started with that, that section. And then another thing that I thought was really important was accountability. Because writing a book is not like writing a long essay. It's got so many different facets to it. So I felt that I needed to be accountable to somebody or to some people. So I told a group of friends that, oh my gosh, I'm writing a book. And every time we would meet, they would insist that, what part of the book are you on? And they would even say things like, maybe we're upset because we're business people, we're upset about something that's happening, and then we would say, make sure, Pat, make sure that's in your book. And so that's literally how we started, populating the book around this, various topics that were important at that time. I felt were important to the entrepreneurs or the people who will be reading it. Yeah.
I was so clueless because honestly, I wasn't writing a book to publish per se. I was writing a book to solve my problem, which was how do I mentor so many people at the same time? So in my mind, I remember I told one of my friends who was also a colleague, and I just told her, I think I should document these issues because I can't travel all the time. And so what I did, I'm a goal person. I set goals and I achieve them. My mantra is, when you make a promise, keep it. When you set a goal, achieve it. When you make a commitment, when you make a commitment, keep it. So I made a commitment that I was going to do 1,000 words every day. And I didn't know for what, but just 1,000 words every day. And so I started. Every morning, I wake up earlier before my usual time to write my 1,000 words. So as I was writing my 1,000 words, I met someone who told me they know somebody who can help me with writing the book. And I met the person and I told them what I am doing. Oh, wait. Oh, gosh, the story is longer. I've remembered. It started way before. I was very restless at my place of work. And I went to see somebody. And he told me, can you start documenting your story? Yeah. So that is how I started documenting 1,000 words. And then I would write and send to him. I sent to him. Now, other things I wrote were not related to what I wanted to write about. Because I think I was going also through a healing process, because there were many things that had gone through in the past that when I started writing the 1,000 words, I was writing about me and my issues. So when I finished writing this, it was around, I think, November. I sent so many. And when I looked at all of them, I realized this is not what I wanted to write. I wanted to write a book for salespeople. But now I wrote so much about my life. By the way, that is still there. It's still a book that is waiting to be published, but it's not ready. Yes. So then I met someone else who told me they can help me edit the book and all that. So my target was to finish writing by 7th of January, 2017, because 7th of January is my birthday. Wow. Everything revolves and starts around that. Now, on 31st of December, 2016, I didn't know what to write. I had written so much, but then I was like, I didn't feel like writing, but I have a commitment to write 1,000 words. And I was alone in the house. It was getting, at night. And I said, how will insurance look like? So that is the only question I wrote. How will insurance look like? And I started imagining. I'm a very good I have...
foresight.
Yes. My sense of imagination is so high. And when I start imagining, I look at what is happening now, what is likely to happen in the next few years, and I have those visions of the future. So I started writing. My goodness.
Right? Doing
Yes.
1,000 words.
Yes.
In fact, you're introducing us to our question, the next question, which would be, what are the challenges that you faced? Patricia, what are some of the challenges that you faced when you were going through the process? Eunice has mentioned that she faced the challenge of, you end up writing not what exactly you wanted the book to be about. Yes. What challenges did you face?
I don't know. It's actually true. When Eunice was speaking, I was just thinking that sometimes you don't know what to write, yeah? And I remember reading either online, or I can't remember what it was, and somebody said that writers write. So the whole idea is that if, yes, you want to write towards a certain goal, but maybe you're not able to think in that way, for whatever reason.
Yeah.
But you can write about what you are going through at that time. So that kind of gets you already into that zone of writing words. And sometimes it's just to inspire you. It's like the way, you know, when you want to do something, but you're like, oh my gosh, I'm too stressed. Let me watch like a mind-numbing movie, you know, that doesn't really require my brain, and then I'm going to work after that. And I feel the writing process is the same way, where don't say that you're waiting for this wonderful, amazing, you know, thing, then I write about it, because that's just not how life is. But as you're continuously writing about your day's experiences, and especially for us as entrepreneurs, and because the book was around entrepreneurship and the work that we do, you will get those moments where you will talk about whatever it is that happened, then slowly your mind will drift towards that work kind of thing. And that's now which will form content now for the book that the next book that you're.
I think that's a really useful tip for those of us who are trying to write our own books. That you don't necessarily have to be writing about whatever your topic, the first book is supposed to be about, because that could be content for the next book.
I think it's the secret to writing. Just write. Just write. Form the habit of writing, journaling, and eventually you get into that sync of what you want to write about. Because it was until when I dealt with me, you know, and the issues I was going through, and now I was able to focus on, now this is what my people, when I say my people, I mean the salespeople who looked up to me, they want. This is what, whenever I speak to them, they feel. This is why they want me to mentor them. And you know, I can't mentor everybody. And that time, our company had 3,000 agents. Wow. So how do I mentor 3,000 agents? Yes, yeah.
Pat, from your journey and your experience, from the time you decided you were writing a book to writing the book and publishing, the last part, what are the challenges that you faced?
It's so funny because I don't know if do we ever finish books. The thing that puts the deadline for you to finish the book is now when you tell people that you're writing a book. So you're like, I can do it for 1 year, 2 years, 3, but after a while they'll be like, that chick and her endless book. So I feel that pressure is kind of book, especially for us who were self-writing. It wasn't that we had been paid to write or self-publishing our own books. So there's no publisher who's forcing you to work towards a deadline, and therefore this document can become this endless, endless narrative. So for me, the initial book had 27 chapters. Once I whittled it down to, I think we were at 13 actually, because the core of the book is 13 chapters. I said, I think this is enough to do a book. And I was writing it, I was co-authoring it with my sister-in-law, who fortunately had written books before. So I could just do this knowledge dump of the book, but because she understood the process, she knew she could put the data kind of like parts into it. So, and I was a bit worried initially that people will be able to feel like the book was written by 2 different people, but that's not the case, because it's a very factual book as well. Yeah, so with the anecdote of the stories and the entrepreneurs, it takes on its own vibe. So you have to think in many ways, what kind of tense, how are you speaking, what kind of voice do you want the reader to hear when they're reading the book? Once that has been determined, you will then now, compile the book. It'll sound like it's flowing to you because there are very many assumptions you're making, very, very many, that people understand the context. So once you get an editor to go through the book, and she doesn't know, what is it that you're trying to do at the end with this document, or he doesn't know. So when the editor reads the book is when they'll tell you this thing is not flowing, or you've got certain gaps in your storytelling that you need to do a little bit more work to link, the chapters. What do you want the emotion of the reader to be like? And the editor is really, really key that they don't only look for grammatical errors, and they also look at how succinct is your thought process. And I think once we put that together and we identified an editor, you literally give them the manuscript. And then the back and forth between the editor and the author is crazy. It's almost like you start writing another book altogether. And so you have to embrace that process as well. And so once you do that back and forth, and then you feel like, okay, fine, I think we've got it. I think it's ready to go. We can go to print. And then what I did is I did a sampling. I ran only like 5 books and gave them to different people to see if they would actually read the book, because is it interesting? Is it something that you'd be interested in reading? And then with that feedback is now when we went into doing the final runs.
Okay. So it's the whole process of the back and forth. You have to have it, I suppose it's grit and persistence.
And also, and just, we can be you have to remove yourself a little bit from the process, because writing is very personal, and you're not ready to show your inner thoughts to somebody. And I think the editor helps you kind of remove that process, Then you're like, okay, fine. Do I really want that there? Don't I? Imagine it's fine, let it go. And another thing is because I interviewed almost 18 entrepreneurs to form the book, I had editorial rights. I didn't now go back with the articles to the entrepreneurs to start, rewriting them. Yeah, and because we whittled the interviews so much, I mean, we had like maybe an hour or two, but we were only writing and we were only picking a paragraph from it. I didn't feel the need for that, back and forth process, which sometimes I think can affect the message that you're trying to send in the book, because people want also to be presented in a certain way, especially now in this social media era. So I kind of and I was very fortunate that these women trusted me with their story, and once I gave them the book, they were quite happy with the outcome. And the long versions of the stories, because they're fantastic stories, we made available online, which now other people can just read.
Yeah.
How about for you, Eunice? What are the top 3 challenges that you had throughout the process?
One of the challenges was the first editor I got. I wasn't clear. I didn't know how to go about this, but it happened that he was a lecturer at a university, a doctor. And so when he started editing the book, and I read it, I felt it became academic. And I read it and I was like, no. My people, remember, my 3,000 people, my people will not resonate with this. And I really tried to now tell him, no. This is not how salespeople think. And I realized we were not agreeing. So I was like, no, I'm not. Actually, at the point, and I think this, I don't know whether it's women or it's me, but there's this fear of, no, I don't want to let him down. He's already sacrificed so much. So I let it pass until we finished the book.
Wow.
That is one thing I will not do again. So we finished the book and we were ready to publish. So when I read now the book that was printed, we printed about 5 copies. My husband read one, I read one, and I think I gave one more person to read. I read it and I was like, I'm not publishing this. I don't want it. It is not speaking to my people. It's not salesperson like.
And how long was this after you had begun the book that this?
This is 2017. Remember, I was to finish the manuscript on 7th of January. Now, several things happened. On 31st of December 2016, when I wrote The Future of Insurance, on 1st of January, I realized I need to go to that future. Okay? So the book, again, stopped being the subject and now focused on the future. And I decided I'm resigning from my job on that day. So I told the editor, we need to fast track the process, because by the time I'm launching this future, I need to launch the book, which is now 1st of July. And so we have printed, this was around May, and I look at it and I'm like, no. As much as I am in a hurry, this is not going to market. And that is how I forgot about the book. It ended there.
Wow.
The project died. 2017, May. Yes, the project died.
Yeah.
So 2018, so I've started Be Smart now in July. The book, it's actually now irrelevant because I'm no longer even doing that job of salespeople. And I am, now in 2018, I got into incubation hub where I was learning about entrepreneurship and business, and I felt the book is even more irrelevant. So I need to rewrite the book so that it accommodates entrepreneurship, because now I'm learning new things. And I think this is the danger of taking too long. First, you feel it's inadequate because new knowledge, you keep getting new knowledge, and you're feeling like, oh my God, my audience are advanced now. The audience I had were fit for the previous book. And now I'm so advanced. Now I need to rethink. So I'm like, okay, this project I am not doing. Then I met someone else who told me, no, I know of a good editor who can actually help you remove the academic bit, because it had turned to be, the original one had become quite academic. Remove that and now turn it back to the original. And so I got this lady, we signed a contract, and we started. And as we were continuing, now I've learned a lesson. I won't wait for it to end. If I'm not comfortable, I'll stop it. So we do a few back and forth, and I'm like, wait, the way we are going, I am not liking, because you want to try and change what I want.
So that was definitely a challenge for you, the back and forth with
yes.
the editors.
Yes,
okay.
Yeah. And it was bad because she's like, you can't terminate the contract.
Wow.
You have to pay full. And I'm like, but you've done quarter. No, we're going to court.
Wow.
It was the worst moment of my writing. And I'm like, wait a minute, why don't I pay you for work done? No, contract says you pay for full work. I'm like, this is unreasonable. So, of course, she involved the lawyer, and I said, wait, I also have lawyers. I involved a lawyer, and the lawyers talked, and we agreed.
So what would you advise someone who wants to, in terms of picking an editor, what would you advise?
Because I still haven't figured it out. Eventually, I got someone who was very good and very friendly, and actually, we were able to get the book out. I would advise, and it's hard to tell from the beginning. That's the challenge. I think I would always go with, because all these were recommendations by people, you get. But this final one that we met in a wedding. And somebody introduced us and said, Eunice is a writer, an author, who is refusing to publish a book. And he told me, I can help you publish. And he's like, how do you help me? Don't worry. Don't even pay me first. Let me do the job. If you're happy, then pay. And that is how this book was able to come out. And we managed to finish it. And he was very good. So I don't really know whether the way to choose.
I think it has a lot to do also with a bit of the chemistry with the person. I was very fortunate that one of the people who has known me for the longest ended up editing the book. But I think that chemistry is extremely, and she was actually my boss at one time, and she really hated my grammar and the fact that I couldn't spell, etc. She was perfect for the job. Yeah. So I think that it really worked, and I think that's where this divine kind of or serendipity, whatever you want to call it. But I think sometimes it happens. But a skilled editor, I feel, should not really be as random as it is now. I think that's a skill set that people have in terms of the scientific process of delivering the product. But I think depending on how early in the process you get an editor involved, because some books you will need to write a few chapters first and then give it to an editor to see if it's succinct or if it can form a story. So it depends on now the skill sets of the editor that you're looking for. But because our books are pretty small and most of them are based on our own life experiences, it's different. But like if you're writing fiction, and even to some extent autobiographies, you really need to write a few chapters and get an editor to read it and see if there's a story that's coming out of it.
Okay. And I suppose also making sure that the terms of your contract are, in terms of having an exit clause.
Yes, actually, yes. The exit clause, and not just for writing a book, in every business.
Every contract must have an exit
please
clause.
Look at the exit clause. And also even on, there's something called, in case you disagree, it's not that you've disagreed, to the point of killing the project, but is there a way of, mediation?
So the book is out, both books are out. What have been your proudest moments? Patricia, we can start with.
Oh my gosh. I think the book changed the direction of my life. I can actually say that because that's what put me on the journey towards advancing women economically. And I'm so glad I never saw that big picture, because I think I would have never released the book, to be honest. One of the powerful things that happened is because I was interviewing very successful entrepreneurs, they were also putting pressure for me to release the book. So my goal was to write the book, period, right? But for them, they were not giving me stories for my own personal use, right? So I needed to release this book. So initially, what I did is I did 50 copies. I think put them. Instagram was not even a thing that time. I either put it on Facebook or Instagram, and people already started asking me. I didn't even have pricing for, I was just like, wow. I'm saying, okay, this thing looks like it's a thing, And but I was really testing the cover. What covers do people like, and I wanted to see that. But those original copies went out with so there's another version of 50 books with a completely different cover. And then came back. We did a few issues that needed to be fulfilled, and then we now did our first run, and the books were in my office. By that time, I had already started sending out like sampling to media people. I sent out a couple to the bookshop. I remember going to Bookstop. Actually, I didn't even go to Bookstop. My husband is the one. I was too scared to go to Bookstop. And because Chan can be a bit, yeah. So my husband goes and asks him if my wife has written a book and they're sitting in the house because she's still worried about them going out. And what do you think of the book? And so he looked at it and said, oh, it looks interesting.
Yeah.
It's nice when you have a genre that is just very specific to a certain kind of people. But the proof is in the pudding. How much should we sell the book? I think we just came up with the figure, at that time. And then there was a lady who was walking in and she was buying a couple of books. She actually has a podcast. And she was buying books because she was either traveling or leaving, so she wanted some books to read and also material for her podcast. And so she saw the book, she said, oh, it looks interesting. And then she left the shop, she didn't buy. Then she came back and bought 2 copies. The
Wow.
2, I think the one that was my husband's and then the one that we were supposed to leave with the books. And she went off with them. So I think that was like, oh my gosh, somebody actually flipped through the pages and has got it. So Chan was like, it's a no-brainer because if I only have to speak to a customer for 2-3 minutes and they're already purchasing the book, bring a couple. So that's what I ended up doing. I sent to Bookstop. The other bookshops were not as easy as it is now that I'm seeing, even including TBC. It was not as easy to put in books like I'm seeing how other people are putting in
But
books.
what were those, the proud moments?
Yes.
What moments is it feedback from a reader, the impact in their lives? What are those moments that like,
the
oh,
first,
it was worth
the
it?
To take you back to now, because if you want a specific thing, I was speaking at an event where a friend of mine had asked me to speak to retailers who sell crafty items in shops like Banana Box, etc. And when I was speaking, I was saying, well, my name is so-and-so, I'm also the author of a book, a kind of handbook. So I turned around into my handbag. Those days we used to go everywhere. And when you're selling a book, it's the worst thing because it's everywhere. It's in your handbag, it's your whatever.
Yeah, everywhere.
So at that time, I used to carry the books everywhere with me. And so I turned around to just, to look into my bag and get the book so that I can show them the cover of the book. And when I turned around, I kid you not, like 8 women had the book up already. I was like, oh,
Wow.
I'm an author. Yeah. So that was really affirming.
Yeah.
That was very affirming that was because the book came out in 2017, so it must have been the following year. Yeah.
Wow. What about for you, Eunice? What have been your proudest moments?
Well, just like Pat, the first, the day that I think we were a bit ambitious. We printed 200 first, 200 copies first. So the day I saw the boxes come to my house, I was like, wow, yeah, this happened. Because all through, just like Pat, COVID has happened. Everybody is scared. And as I told you, I get fascinated by things that don't fascinate people. One of the things that happened when COVID came, on Uhuru closed on 26th of March. And on 27th of March, I was like, wow, God, this is a crisis. And I think there are very nice opportunities here. What are they? I asked God, I was praying, and I asked God, what do you want us to do now? And I felt this crisis is going to be long. I don't know why, but I felt it's not ending. So, of course, I closed the office to prepare for this crisis. And so we are at home, and God, what do I do with this time? And I had met that guy in a wedding. I called him and say, hey, we need the book out by August. And
You had not found the time.
yes. So we worked on it, and by August, we had a book. So that was, a great moment for me. The next moment was, I just announced on Facebook and people start making orders. And I'm like, huh? Okay. They are going to buy. Because the publisher told me, for me, I thought, this book, we sell it like 1,000 bob. Like, no. This book is 1,500. Like, oh, okay. Kenyans can buy. So when we put it on social media and people started buying, because I have a website, eunicemaina.com. So people started making orders, and my son did it, that ordering process of the book. He's the one who designed that part. And people started making orders, and we received a message, congratulations on order. Like, wow, okay, people really can buy. And then the other moment was on the launch. I launched on 7th of January.
Your birthday?
My birthday. 7th is very significant day, 7th of January. And I had not thought, I had been postponing launching the book because I was feeling like I'm inadequate. I can't really, can people even come for a book launch? You remember, Pat, I had even asked you about it. And then I just, just flicked out. And I couldn't launch. Then I talked to a friend of mine on 24th of December. And she asked me, Eunice, why haven't you launched your book? I'm like, must someone launch a book? Must we launch a book? It's such, I don't want embarrassment. And like, Eunice, actually she repeated, Eunice, why haven't you launched your book? I said, okay, this requires thinking. Because initially, I just responded, must I launch? But then, she called the second time. This requires thinking. I said, will people come?
COVID.
With COVID. Like, when would you have loved, if everything was constant, when would you like to launch your book? I said, on my birthday. Like, so what is stopping you? I don't know how. I said, Eunice, you're launching your book on 7th of January. Get to work. I said, yes, I will.
And it's interesting to hear both your stories and how, you had a support system around you that pushed you to continue.
No, you need all that. All the time. There's that person who nags you to do the best you can be. Yeah.
I'm curious to know, because you're both entrepreneurs, the business side of the book, what does that look like? Is it, your motivations were very different from making money from the book. But as an entrepreneur, what is the business side of the book? How much does it cost in terms of time? Clearly, it's a very high cost. But in terms of publishing, and how do you decide the pricing for the book? Patricia, how did you do yours?
So because that's the industry I'm in, of course. Yeah, that's what Without Productions we do. I had a pretty good idea in terms of the cost, how the finished product would look. I wanted the book to be full color inside. That was an important part of it, because they say Kenyans don't read. So, and now imagine more so a busy Kenyan entrepreneur woman, So it needed to be something that was catchy, that they would like to read, and then you don't have to read it chapter by chapter. That was not the point of the way we had done the book. So I kind of like, the use of the book was what guided me in the costing. So I knew it would be a little bit more pricey. And I was not, because people would need to write in the book. It kind of like also dictated the material that I was going to use inside. And so that's dictated. So it's not a cheap book to print. I mean, I could print it much cheaper if I wanted to. And like the one you have in your hand is even hardcover. So those are some of the things. With hardcover, we're not really running them now, but that was, for me, it was something that I was holding on to. It has to be hardcover so that it fits in our handbags and it doesn't get squishy. So those things guided, but it also made it very expensive to produce. And remember, because we're not doing a huge marketing. So ideally, if you've got a publisher behind you, what the publisher will do is handle all your marketing for you, the back end of the book. But what they will also require is for you to print a large amount of money. I mean, a large amount of books, because they need to make their money back. So when you see people sometimes sitting in bookstores or doing speaking engagements, appearing a lot on TV and on radio, there's a publisher behind that, and that's because that's the business that they're in. But when you self-publish, you kind of like regulate that process. And so you go with the budget with what you have at that time. And then the beauty about the printing industry has changed so much now. So you can print from one book to 1,000 books. Of course, in terms of the cost per book, it makes the most sense for you to print bulk. So in my case, my minimum run needed to be between 500 to 1,000 for me to consistently keep a certain cost.
Yeah.
So that even when it goes into bookshops, the bookshops have to take their 20%. There's VAT
And what's the
involved.
range?
Yeah.
What's the range in terms of production?
How do you mean?
In terms of printing a book,
Yeah.
what does that actually cost? What's the range?
You can't. It's dependent on there are too many variables.
Yeah.
The number of pages of the book, the material you're using on the book, the number of colors you print inside the book.
Yeah.
There are too many variables for you to get a ballpark figure. But that guides. So, for example, if you have, for example, a 300-page book, there's a minimum that makes sense for you to run that book. Because if you only run one, then you're retailing the book at maybe 5,000 shillings. So you have to do the quantities of that which will guide you. So if it's a very big book, like when you see it's an author, a famous author, they usually run like even 10,000 for it to make sense as their first run. So that's what dictates the cost of running of the book. You hardly ever make money on your first run. That's what you have to remember. Because it's like anything else, starting it and pushing it makes a lot. So you're looking at running the book, doing a third print and a fourth print for you to be able to really have a return, kind of like, or if you want royalties, if you like. So for us, by the time the marketing costs, and it wasn't until I think only my last run that I can say that I came out of the red in terms of the cost of bringing the book to market.
What about for you, Eunice? What are the key lessons in terms of the pricing of the book or the business of the book?
It's actually what Pat is talking about. There are so many variables. For me, the good thing is that I had the publisher who helped me come up with the pricing, guide me on, like, you see, printing 200 copies was much more expensive than if you were to print 1,000 copies. So I wouldn't say I had much challenge with that because I had someone guiding me on that.
So if you're not an expert in the field,
no, if I wasn't,
then a publisher is what
you have to get, because then you have. I mean, I've talked to authors that have went and run 5,000, for example, books because it was really cheap for them to run the 5,000. So maybe if I run 5,000, then my cost maybe, let's say, for example, is 500 bob, and by the time it hits the market, it's 1,500. So you see, you've got a good spread in terms of that. But the reality is, who's going to move those 5,000 books?
Yes, the selling.
Yes, the selling. So you have to weigh in terms. And as I say, we're entrepreneurs, and unless that is your core business, you're not going to be going around selling books. You've got insurance to sell.
I have this much
to sell. So you
have
to kind of like be reasonable about your expectations around the book. But the marketing, and sometimes you'll see, I remember speaking to an author that released a book, was it last year? And she sat, her process took 4 years. It's a fictional book, It took 4 years. She sat with the manuscript, the back and forth over those from when she finished the book to when it was finally published. Then you look for a publishing house now to publish. So they buy either the rights from you so they can take that process further. Then she kept the local rights, but the publishing house has all the rights to selling them outside of Kenya. And guess what? She then got her book, came back into Kenya from abroad for it to be sold into the local market. But sometimes that's what you do, especially for fiction stories where you need to print hundreds of thousands of books. It makes sense to work with a publishing house.
I'm going to ask you to read from your books, but before that, maybe you could tell us, who is your book for?
I remember when it actually surprises me. When I bought the book, I thought I was writing it for 40-plus women who are looking at pivoting in their careers, But I didn't realize that millennials and this Generation Z they actually don't want to be employed. So they want to start early of starting the entrepreneurial process. So my book is mainly read by women, of course, with between the ages of 25 to around, I would say, 41. Those are the my real audience. But also a lot of the books have been purchased by men, and usually it's for either their daughters or their wives who are looking at transitioning. So I got a lot of, especially in the bookstore shop, a lot of men purchased the book as well.
Right. Eunice, you mentioned in your book that entrepreneurs, selling people in sales are entrepreneurs.
I say nothing happens until you sell. Nothing. As in, if you're an entrepreneur, if you're a salesperson, actually even as a parent, nothing happens until somebody sells something. What do I mean by that? Yes, my book is for actually salespeople and entrepreneurs. And I know the stories are so much about when I was an insurance sales agent. So it relates very well with the insurance sales agent, but it is applicable to all salespeople. and entrepreneurs who want to learn how to sell. Because today, if as an entrepreneur you're not selling, then you have no business. And let nobody lie to anyone. You cannot be an entrepreneur who cannot sell. Because what will happen is that you will close the business. And that's why we see many people leave their jobs. They have this amazing innovation, ideas, they innovate. But innovation is as good as nothing if nobody pays for it. And how do you get people to pay for it? You need to show them, or rather, you need to actually sell. Selling is not as bad as people think, because people say, I can spend sales. Selling is just basically enabling another person get what they need. So when I have this book, I know you need to read it. I just need to show you how important it is to you. So it's that simple. So anyone who just want to learn, the simple basics of selling, and it's coupled with stories of how I have personally done it. And because I published when I was already an entrepreneur, I added now a bit of my journey as an entrepreneur and how I call it entrepreneurial selling. Because don't leave your job if you have not read this book.
I've heard it. Pat, what is your favorite part of the book? Could you read from?
So my favorite part of the book is probably when I hear people saying I read your book in one sitting, I usually know what they've done. And that is that they have read the entrepreneurs' stories, but they haven't read the entire book. So I'm going to just make you very, very embarrassed, because I'm actually going to read a section of the part of the book that when we spoke and when we had the interview that we read. So I don't know if I will just show. Will you be able to see? No, or you can zoom in, yeah? So I interviewed, when I did the book, I interviewed about, as I said, 18 entrepreneurs, and each of their stories is really unique, yeah? And the reason why I'm going to read Esmeralda's story is I'm not sure if she's introduced herself and why it is that you're interviewing entrepreneurs. So Esmeralda D'Souza was 19... Start that again. Esmeralda D'Souza, Spes Limited Food and Catering. Esmeralda D'Souza was a 19-year-old single mom out to prove to her parents that she could get her life back on track when she started her catering business, Spes. In fact, she was living at home, which was a big factor. We were lucky enough to still be in our parents' houses, so there was no pressure for rent or whatever. What we used to do was to give each other money to live, and that was what we called it. Living to us was just going out and buying whatever we wanted. Of course, my son's school fees was also going to be coming from here. So I'll then jump to a summary of her story. In summary, however, in the early days, Esmeralda is clear. What has helped us a lot was our family support. It is an untapped source of support that allows your family and friends to feel good about supporting you, and a way of access to funds that you would otherwise not consider. It is always worth asking, even if you do not end up with cold, hard cash, where you may get advice, referrals, and a shoulder to lean on in times of trouble. In the early days, it is important to keep an open mind as to where your funding comes from and what it takes to get the funding. Even what seems like indirect support sometimes is what keeps your business afloat if you were to make a big break.
Wow.
Thank you, Pat.
I really enjoyed the interview, and the full interview is available online for you to read.
Eunice, what's your favorite part of the book?
Actually, okay, I have many favorites, but can I just read the first part of the book, the preface?
Sure.
Having bought this book, you probably have one question that keeps popping in your mind. How can I sell more of my products or service? Sell Me This Pen is a common sales test given to aspiring salespeople. When joining the insurance industry, the test came knocking during my interview. And I am not sure you can sell, but we can confirm it here, the branch manager told me as he grinned and handed me a pen. Having trained on selling in my previous job, this felt like a breeze in the park. Consequently, I managed to sell his pen at a higher price than the market rate. This question is asked to millions searching for an opportunity at sales career during interviews. However, unbeknownst to many, it is also asked to billions who aspire to be entrepreneurs. Those who can't answer the question form a majority of those who fail in their business ventures. In this book, I will share with you my years of experience selling insurance through storytelling and in-depth analysis of the practice of selling. Yes.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And thank you so much for sharing your journey with us. I'm sure we've learned so much from you. And would you mind telling us where your books are available? So for those who are interested in buying and have not yet purchased them.
So our book is available here at Kayana and at the Bookstop. It's available on Amazon. You can order your hard copy print and it'll be delivered to you, or for your Kindle.
Yeah, you can find my book at euniceMaina.com. That's my website, or you can find it at Textbook Center or in Amazon, the Kindle version. Yeah.
Thank you so much. And on behalf of all those who've read the books, thank you for the impact that you've made in people's lives. I'm sure there's far more than you know that has happened because of your books. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.